Thank you, Chairman Hurd and Ranking Member Ledger Fernandez, for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Mary Kathryn Nagle. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, and I serve as General Counsel for the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center. The NIWRC is a Native-led nonprofit organization working to provide national leadership to promote safety for Native women and communities by supporting culturally grounded grassroots advocacy and strengthening tribal sovereignty. Our primary focus is ending the high rates of violence against our Native women in our communities and the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and relatives. NIWRC submits this testimony in strong support of H.R. 1010, the Bridging Agency Data Gaps and Ensuring Safety for Native Communities Act. Every day, we work alongside survivors, families, and advocates of domestic violence, sexual assault, and trafficking victims from across Indian country. They face the devastating consequences of chronically underfunded services and programs, insufficient resources, inadequate data collection, jurisdictional gaps, and fragmented federal coordination. This legislation is long overdue, and Native people are paying the price for the delay. According to the National Institute of Justice, more than 4 in 5 American Indian, and Alaska Native women have experienced violence in their lifetime, and more than half have experienced sexual violence and intimate partner violence. The Centers for Disease Control identified homicide as a leading cause of death for American Indians and Alaska Natives, with 45% of homicides of female victims precipitated by intimate partner violence. Many of these cases are never entered into federal databases and never investigated with the urgency they deserve, leaving families searching for their loved ones on their own. The Badges for Native Communities Act addresses longstanding systemic failures that leave Native communities and families without adequate support. Title I of the Act expands tribal access to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons, NAMIS, by requiring federally employed tribal facilitators to conduct ongoing tribal outreach, serve as a point of contact for tribes and law enforcement agencies, and provide training to improve the resolution of missing persons cases. Enabling tribal law enforcement to access, upload, and utilize the data in NAMIS will save lives. Far too many MMIWR families routinely wait months only to learn that the state, county, or federal law enforcement agency they contacted never entered their loved one's name into the database, a failure that is both unacceptable and preventable. Title I also requires the creation of a report documenting tribal law enforcement needs. Because the federal government has consistently failed to meet its trust and treaty obligations to tribal nations in terms of federal spending, and because the right of tribal governments to collect taxes on their own lands has been significantly truncated by federal law, public safety in Indian country remains dangerously under-resourced. This report will help policymakers to understand the scope of the funding crisis. Title II grants the Bureau of Indian Affairs authority to conduct its own background checks, enabling the BIA to hire more officers more efficiently. This provision is critical. Currently, the Office of Justice Services, OJS, is so severely understaffed that Native families have been waiting for more than 8 months just to receive a returned phone call or email concerning the status of their loved one's case. This is the case with Kisera Stop's Pretty Places, a young Crow and Cheyenne teenager who was murdered in Montana in 2019. For 9 months now, her family has been told that no one at the MMU or OJS has time to speak with them. And they are still waiting to hear about the DNA results performed on the clothing she was wearing when she was killed. The reason they have been given? Every MMU agent in Montana is covering field shifts due to understaffing at BIA. This is not only a resource issue, it is a failure of institutional priority. Title II also establishes a grant program funding states, tribes, and tribal organizations to coordinate efforts to search for missing persons. This funding is essential for tribes precisely because federal law enforcement has consistently refused to make such searches a priority. The case of Ella Mae Begay illustrates why this matters. Ella Mae went missing on the Navajo reservation 5 years ago. Just 2 weeks ago, her family sat in a federal court and listened to the Assistant United States Attorney argue that the government should release the defendant with just time served. The reason the family was given was because the FBI had never been able to recover Ella Mae's body, and they felt the evidence in the case was too weak to win the case at trial, despite the defendant's confession to having kidnapped Ella Mae from her home, knocking her unconscious, and disposing of her body by the side of the road on the reservation. When Ella Mae's family asked whether the FBI had used a drone to search for her body on the reservation, a vast land base with challenging terrain, the response was no, because the FBI cannot afford one. If the FBI can afford a 6-figure reward for information leading to the recovery of Nancy Guthrie, it can dedicate one drone to the search for Ella May and bring her family closure and justice. The absence of a single drone in Ella May's case is a choice and a deprioritization of our missing relatives and the safety for our communities. The Badges Act redirects resources to those who will actually search for our relatives. The Badges for Native Communities Act offers meaningful, concrete solutions to systemic violence and institutional neglect that Native people have endured for far too long. The National Indigenous Women's Resource Center offers its strong support for this bipartisan legislation, and we hope to see it enacted into law without further delay. Every day that passes is another day a family waits by the phone for answers. Wadon, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nagle, for that testimony. The chair now recognizes Ms. Carlos for 5 minutes. Ms. Carlos.